Today, February the 19th, 2021, Lyles Station Historic School and Museum celebrates a woman who conquered prejudice against both racism and sexism to become the first African American woman to earn a medical degree in the United States, Dr. Rebecaa Davis Lee Crumpler. Crumpler was also the first African American woman to write a medical text. A Book of Medical Discourses was published in 1883 and addressed both her experiences as a medical doctor and provided medical advice for women and children. Absolum and Matilda Davis welcomed the birth of their daughter Rebecaa in 1831 in Delaware. Born free, she was later raised by an aunt in Pennsylvania. The future doctor credited her interest in medicine to watching her aunt provide health care to her neighbors, stating that watching her aunt inspired her to want to relieve the suffering of others. She explained in her book, "It may be well to state here that having been reared by a kind aunt in Pennsylvania, whose usefulness with the sick was continually sought, I early conceived a liking for and sought every opportunity to relieve the suffering of others." Described as a bright, intelligent child, she attended a prestigious private school in Massachusetts, the West Newton English and Classical School. In 1852, she moved to Charleston, Massachusetts, married Wyatt Lee, and worked as a nurse. She worked for several doctors in the community. She impressed them with her medical skill and ability, so much so that they recommended her for admission to the New England Female Medical College, the first in the country to train female medical doctors at a time when very few would accept females, much less African American females. At that time, there were no African American female doctors to be counted in the 54,000 doctors in the United States, with only 300 of them being female. African American students were banned from most medical schools, and most administrators believed women were not intelligent enough to serve as medical doctors and were too delicate and weak. In the beginning, the medical school trained women to serve only as midwives, since the founder believed it was improper for male doctors to be present at childbirth. However, by the time Rebecaa Lee attended, the college had expanded its curriculum to cover a complete medical education. In 1860, she applied and was accepted. Sadly, her husband Wyatt died from tuberculosis in 1863, while she was still in school. Widowed and facing financial difficulties, she persevered and was awarded a scholarship from the Wade Scholarship Fund, founded by abolitionist Benjamin Wade. Graduating on March 1, 1864, 4 years after her admission, with her degree labeling her as a doctoress of medicine, she started her practice in Boston, treating poor women and children. In 1865, she married Arthur Crumpler, a blacksmith, and together they relocated to Richmond, Virginia, as the Civil War drew to an end. She viewed Richmond as a proper field for real missionary work. She worked with the Freedmen's Bureau and other groups to care for the newly freed African Americans, most of them poor, with no other access to medical care since most white doctors would not treat them. During this time, Dr. Crumpler was exposed to both racism and sexism, for the men doctors snubbed her, Druggists balked at filling her prescriptions, and some people wisecracked that the MD behind her name stood for nothing more than mule driver. Dr. Crumpler, as she was known then, continued to practice after returning to Boston in the latter part of the 1860s, where she treated her patients, whether or not they could pay. 64 at the time of her death in 1895, she was recognized in 1989 when the Rebecaa Lee Society, an organization supporting and promoting African American female physicians, was founded. Most of what we know about Dr. Crumpler comes from her book. We're not even sure that the photographs attributed to be of her actually are. After her death, she remained fairly unknown, reposing in an unmarked grave for over 125 years until 2020. Dr. Melody McLeod and Vicki Gall, president of the Friends of the Hyde Park Branch Library, worked to provide granite headstones for both Rebecaa and Arthur Crumpler.